Good evening. I am Chris Doles. I am so honored and proud to be among so many federal unionists. I'm going to be joined by Elisa Tafty. Is she on the screen or is she coming on? There we go. Now we're together. Hi, Elisa.
Hi, Chris.
It's kind of amazing to be here with you, and I understand at least 2 or 3 thousand people are already with us. Not sure how many are going to join over the course of the show, but why don't I introduce you briefly, and then you can introduce me so they know who they're going to hear from throughout the night, and we'll tell you what tonight's all about. So, Elisa Tafty is the president of AFGE 2211. I'll let you repeat all the different agencies that you represent, Elisa, because it's a lot more complicated than mine. And I'll just make the disclaimer for myself, for Elisa, for everybody, that anything we say tonight is our own opinions. Maybe some people are speaking for their unions, but nobody is speaking for their agencies. And I'll just briefly say that Elisa and I met, gosh, what was it, 2 years ago through the Federal Unionist Network when it was just getting started. And we've been working together along with many, many other unionists in a couple of years since. In the last few weeks, we've seen this project grow massively. And now today, I think we have a historic opportunity to mobilize as a single federal sector. And as you'll hear from many leaders from the different federal unions tonight, we are ready to fight back and defend not just the civil service, but the services we provide and ultimately the democracy. But Elisa, thanks for everything you've been doing. It's so exciting to be in the struggle with you. And I'll let you say a few words at the top too.
Thanks so much, Chris. Chris is who you've just heard. He's president of IFPTE Local 98. He's a founding member of the FUN, the Federal Unionist Network. We are on the steering committee of the FUN together, and he is a federal worker. I have loved getting to work with Chris. I got put in touch with him pretty early on when I became president of my local, and getting to learn from an amazing organizer like Chris has been so much fun, and I'm so glad to be in this together with you, Chris.
So obviously, we should say the acronym, the name FUN, we came up with in less serious times. Um, and while organizing can be fun these days, it's dead serious. And I think the tone that we want to set tonight is one of solidarity and hope to cut against the fear and the intimidation and the trauma that they're trying to impose on federal workers. And we hope that tonight's the beginning for the thousands of you out there listening, and that you find a home in the Federal Unionist Network for those of you who are federal workers, and that you commit yourself to doing the kind of organizing that's going to be necessary to stop what we're up against. Elisa, do you want to maybe tell a little bit about what our major objectives are tonight, what this call is all about, and then maybe I can say a little bit about what everybody's going to say.
Yeah, I think that one of the other things that I wanted to add about sort of how we gather together here too, I think it is really serious times, but there's so much joy in solidarity and in being in community with each other. And I think that's something that's a really important thing that we want to sort of hang on to both sort of through our program tonight, but also as we go forth and we sort of organize together and are in community together around the country to push back on sort of this attack on federal workers and really on the American people. So why are we here tonight? We have such an amazing group of people coming together here. We have the leaderships of our unions coming together to support this. And what we have done, we have seen that all of these different groups have been doing amazing work over the last months, weeks, to really push back to try to protect our federal workforce against these attacks. And so we are coming together here tonight to really talk about the way forward, celebrating what we've done so far, but recognizing how much more work has to be done. So we will bring people together. We're going to bring together our amazing union leaders who are here, as well as our federal workers, to really talk about the impacts of this, how we're going to be able to fight back, and how each of you are going to be able to speak up in your own ways to be able to organize and unite and do good.
Yeah, and as folks who are familiar with the federal sector, unions already know the federal sector is a real alphabet soup of all the of a whole bunch of different federal unions. And I'm really excited to hear from those like the American Federation of Government Employees and the National Treasury Employees Union and the National Federation of Federal Employees. And there are maybe a couple others that are really relatively exclusively focused on the federal sector, and their expertise in federal sector unionism and organizing. I think that will come through tonight. But also, I just want to flag that, a lot of the unions that represent different federal workers are actually names that you recognize from other sectors that aren't necessarily federal sector primarily. And that's why we have the United Auto Workers with us and the American Federation of Teachers. But what I'm looking forward to hearing from them tonight is not only the work that they do for their federal workers, but also how we can make this a movement of the whole labor movement and begin to see not just federal workers who are fighting back against the immediate attacks we face, but also those other sectors and the other workers that those unions and so many others represent who are going to face the downstream effects of all these attacks on the federal sector. So I think it's an exciting evening. We literally have more than 99% of the federal union workforce represented by the coalition that we've brought together. We're going to be talking about the Let Us Work campaign, which we're launching here tonight. I'll be explaining a little bit more about it. But first, Elisa, do you want to introduce Paul, our dear friend and comrade in arms?
Yeah, I would love to. So we're going to go back and forth a little bit, and we're going to hear from organizers, federal workers, and organizers who are just like you, giving you some really great information about what these attacks mean, and sort of helping us inspire us to remember why we are doing this. So I want to start by introducing Paul Osadebe, who is a union steward at AFGE Local 476. He's a civil rights attorney at HUD, Housing and Urban Development. I'm going to try to avoid acronyms, but I can't help myself as a government employee. Paul is a pretty classic federal employee who just wanted to do his job, serving the public and not make waves. But then when the attacks on the government happened, Paul knew that that wasn't going to work anymore, and he was going to have to speak out and use his voice. And I'm so glad that he is, because every time I hear him speak, I'm constantly moved and inspired by him. So I hope I don't overhype you to add any pressure, Paul, but please go ahead and.
No, I appreciate the hype, and I want to thank everyone out there, the thousands of people already on this call. It is so amazing to have so many different members of the community, not just the 99% of the federal labor movement that's on this call, but the community members, the people from all types of groups all across the country, from private sector labor to community groups to just everyday working Americans who recognize what type of attack that we're facing right now and knew that they needed to get on a call and organize to stop it. And that's what we're here to do today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the stakes and the danger that we're facing as a country, as workers, and as Americans and public servants right now. And it's pretty serious. That's why we're all here. Right now, let's just call it what it is. We are facing a billionaire coup. They are attempting to take over everything and steal everything that is not nailed down. And they're doing a lot to accomplish that goal right now. They are attacking public servants first and foremost because they think that they should have the ability to decide what has value in the society and who has value. And anything that doesn't make money and put money in their pockets, they think that should just be cut outright. And because of that, these are people who think you having Medicare, access to Medicare, or Social Security benefits, they think you having access to public education, clean air and water, mail, just having mail delivered that you don't have to pay Amazon and Jeff Bezos for first, they think that's a waste, that's fraud, that's abuse. But we're on this call because we don't agree. We know how important it is for ordinary working people to have public goods and public servants that provide them. So we are going to organize. We have to organize together to stop these attacks, because as we've seen this week, those attacks are escalating. They're not laying off, they're going harder and harder each week. And their goal is to break everything so quickly that people don't have a chance to react, and that so that we don't have a chance to come together and stop them. And we've seen that take the form just this week or this last week of them outright canceling a TSA contract, canceling a collective bargaining agreement. And you have to understand that when they think that they can do that to federal workers, that's coming to the private sector as soon as they feel that they can get away with it. And attacking public servants and regulators is the first step in getting them there. When you see them shutting down environmental protection offices, environmental justice offices in the EPA, they're doing that so that they can open the door to ruining your air and water just to make a quick buck. That's what they're trying to do. And when they talk about shutting down NASA, that's just so Elon Musk can live his dream, his boyhood dream of jetting off to Mars after he destroys this planet, leaving us to deal with the mess. That's unacceptable. We cannot stand for that. And the only way to counter that is to join together. And if you take one thing from this call, I want everyone to understand that escalation does not only go one way. They've been ramping up and ramping up and ramping up against federal workers, public service, public goods, and ordinary Americans for a month, almost 2 months now. But it's not a one-way street. We have power too. We have power as ordinary Americans, and we sure as hell have to use it right now to save our services, to save public service, and to save the country. That's what we have to do. And that's what this call is going to be about. We're going to not just talk about hope for how we do that. We're going to talk about a plan to win, because they are relying on us just laying down. People talk as if they have all the power, that they're the only ones who can act, but we can act too. And we can recognize what the dynamics are. And those dynamics are, they expect us to just keep our heads down, to not cause trouble, to not get in the way, to not come together and organize. And they are relying on that. They can't succeed without that. So what you have to do is deny them what they want. They want us to be passive, to continue as if it's business as usual. But when we come together and disrupt that through just mass organizing all across the country to where they can't ignore us, that is when we win. And that's what we're going to talk about how to do tonight. So let's go.
Thanks, Paul. I'm going to quickly make sure we thank all of the partners of tonight's event, as well as the campaign that we're launching here tonight. I already mentioned some of them, but I just want to make sure I mention all of them. And then I'm going to do a quick slideshow to make sure the framing of our strategy and our Let Us Work campaign is clear. And then we're going to hear from a bunch of the leaders of the labor movement and more federal workers. So maybe you could start the slideshow now, and I can just thank all the folks who sponsored tonight's event and are really partners in this campaign and this movement, the Let Us Work campaign, which I'll go through. So AFGE, folks should know, is the biggest union of federal workers, the American Federation of Government Employees. NTEU is the National Treasury Employees Union. IFPTE, my union, the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers. NEFI, which is the National Federation of Federal Employees. AFSCME, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. SEIU and their National Association of Government Employees, the American Federation of Teachers, United Auto Workers, and the AFL-CIO. Thank you for all the work you've done to help pull this coalition together and support this campaign, and also some allies from the broader progressive movement, the Working Families Party, Common Defense, and Move On. And I think it's an amazing coalition. I'm so proud and honored to be a part of it. I'm really excited about what we're going to do through this campaign to really make the price too high for the Trump administration to continue down the path that they've started. And with that, I'm just going to quickly frame out what the plan is here, because just in the last 2 months, we've seen that federal workers are organized and getting more organized by the day. And the narrative that Trump and Musk, and Doge, and all of them are trying to advance, that it's really about government efficiency and cutting slashing, draining the swamp, whatever their latest insults are for federal workers. They want the broader public to believe that they're looking out for them, stopping government waste. But the truth is that it's not really about us federal workers. It's about the services that make it livable to be in this country, that guarantee certain minimum standards, whether it's the labor protections that are upheld by the National Labor Relations Board, or it's the environmental protections that the EPA upholds, all the services that the federal government provides, that's what they're really after. And the cutting of those services is massively unpopular. And if we can change the narrative and help the broader public understand that it's not us federal workers that they're after, it's them that they're after. They're trying to make it harder to be a worker in this country and easier to be a billionaire. And if we can change that narrative and help the broader public understand that, we can pull the political support out from this administration and make the political cost too high for them to continue to pursue it. So federal workers are fighting back, and Trump and Musk are already losing support. You can go to the next slide. We've already seen not only Tesla stock in decline, but also some of the desperation that we're seeing from the administration. Trump pulling a political stunt of buying a Tesla to show his solidarity with Musk and presumably to get his political base to buy Teslas. Musk declaring that it's public sector workers who are the real enemy, and that Social Security is a scam. I mean, these are real signs of desperation from an administration that's beginning to see their political capital wane much faster than they ever expected. But that's just the beginning. Their desperate communications just show what could be possible if we actually escalate and build the campaign much bigger and much faster. Our strategy is to accelerate the mass backlash that we need to organize against the administration, to challenge them, and ultimately to win the narrative. And I think that's only going to work if we have rapid responses all over the country every time mass firings hit another agency in a different city. And that's what the Let Us Work campaign is all about. We're trying to make sure the next time 30 workers get fired from your local Veterans Administration hospital, that 300 people turn out the next day and say, these jobs are too important. Don't let them get away with it. The next time 50 people get fired from your Social Security office in your neighborhood, in your city, we need 500 people turn out the next day to say, we need those people to help us guarantee that Social Security is accessible. We need rapid response so that the resignation doesn't set in, either for the workers who are fired or for the community who's lost those services. So our whole plan, the Let Us Work campaign, is about building a massive list of people who are ready to turn out same day or next day when federal workers put out the call to say, we've been hit. Are you with us tomorrow? And we stand up, we mobilize into the outside of the federal buildings, outside of the VA hospitals, wherever it is, to help the broader public understand that we're not going to take this lying down and erode the political support that they think they have. So we have to be bigger, we have to be faster, and we have to be more organized than we've ever been before, because that's the only chance we have to really winning the narrative. We have to grab the attention away from Trump and Musk. And we need to put the regular working people who depend on the services that we provide at the center of the narrative, and make sure it's the services that are front and center and not necessarily just the federal workers. Sure, we're all interested in supporting federal workers. We are federal workers, but it's the services we provide that the broader American public depends on. And that's the basic strategy. And what the call to action tonight, the thing everybody needs to do is to go to savepublicservices.com and promote it to all the people in your communities. You can go to the last slide, because we already have a dozen or so actions already planned for town hall type meetings to begin to organize these rapid responses. But the pins on that map on this screen have to cover the whole country. That's going to be the only way that we can show to Trump and Musk and all the Republicans and Democrats who are threatening to support any of their program to make the cost too high for them to continue to pursue it. We need to cover this map in pins. So start organizing now, put out a call to your community, promote savepublicservices.com. And in the next few weeks, we need to have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people all over the country ready to turn out same day, next day to show that we aren't going to stand for these cuts in services. So that's the strategy. We're going to be plugging the call to action throughout the night. Please start right now. Go to savepublicservices.com, fill in your information. If you're a federal worker, be sure to check that box. We'll be talking tonight about how we're going to strengthen the labor movement from the inside, as well as how we're going to reach the broader public to mobilize the broader public in support of not just the federal workforce, but the democracy itself that's at stake. Elisa, who do we have first? Am I doing the intro?
Yes, T is up next, I think.
Hey, good evening. I am so honored to be speaking to you tonight, not only as a proud federal worker and a union member, but also as a great granddaughter of a World War II veteran and a coworker, a niece, a neighbor, a cousin, and best friend of many active duty personnel, reservists, and veterans spanning from the Vietnam to post 9/11 eras, many of which who are looking forward to or who have already enjoyed their second line of duty, joining the U.S. public sector workforce. And in my role, I had the privilege of not only serving veterans and working alongside them, but also working alongside them, rather. Many of you may not know this, but currently U.S. military veterans make up 30% of the federal workforce, and about 1 in 5 of all my coworkers are actually veterans. For the past 6 weeks, my veteran family, my coworkers, us, have been enduring a careless assault by America's biggest problem, Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency, otherwise known as DOGE. They have been directing mass firings and bullying towards resignations, creating a system that destabilizes healthcare for veterans. They've been causing mass job delays, making it almost impossible for agencies to bring on new hires for urgently needed medical positions, canceling critical contracts, right, that include clinical research on suicide prevention or treatment of substance use disorders. They've even compromised our personal data, violating, the privacy of current and future employees, discriminating against targeted military, union, and civilian leaders because of their identities or because of those who they choose to ally along, and so much more. And there is nothing thorough or thoughtful about this approach. This is for their stated cruel and inhumane purpose of ensuring that we have no bandwidth and to be put into trauma. Family, this is destruction by design. We must not stand down. Tomorrow will actually mark my 3rd anniversary of being in federal service. And let me tell you, I intend to retire from the federal government. With about 27 years to go in my career, I stand proudly among other public sector workers who enjoy living wages, job stability and security, and life-changing benefits while serving the American public. I signed up for this job to honor my family's legacy and value in public service, and I will uphold the oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And like my great-granddaddy, Samuel, we know our rights. We did not elect Elon Musk. So thank you for joining on this call tonight. Let's stand up and fight back together, demanding that this administration fire Musk and let us work. Thank you.
Thanks so much, T. Up next, I want to introduce Rich Couture. Rich is at the Social Security Administration and is president of AFGE Council 215, in addition to being spokesperson for AFGE's SSA General Committee, which covers actually the entire 42,000 person bargaining unit at SSA. Rich's commitment to protecting our Social Security has meant that he's had to miss some of his beloved metal concerts. So sorry that you've had to miss that, but thank you so much for your hard work, and we're really happy you are here with us tonight. I'll turn it over to you, Rich.
Thank you for having me. I got to get that rage out somehow. It's been very inspiring to see the groundswell of grassroots activism rise up in response to the unprecedented attacks against the federal civil service by this administration and by the billionaire class. It's that outpouring of energy that fills me with hope that we will not only just survive the challenges that lie ahead, but that we will thrive as a result with a stronger labor movement and greater respect for the working class. I'm proud, as you mentioned, I represent 42,000 bargaining unit employees at SSA, from the field office workers who help you with your Social Security cards and with retirement and disability claims, to the 800 number of workers helping to get your business done over the phone, to the hearings and appeals employees supporting SSA judges and claimants, to the IT specialists that keep our systems running, and so many more positions, so many more offices. SSA workers truly keep this most vital program working for America. And like so many other agencies and programs across the federal government, Social Security is under attack. Social Security is a promise that this nation made to itself 90 years ago this year, that no American should have to suffer in poverty when they retire after a lifetime of work or because they're no longer able to work because of a disability. Social Security also takes care of dependents as well. But after 90 years, that promise is at risk of being broken. The integrity and even the legitimacy of the Social Security system is under siege. DOGE is rifling through agency systems, accessing the most sensitive information belonging to virtually every American, allegedly looking for fraud that somehow regular audits haven't found. DOGE has listed about 50 Social Security offices all over the country as having their leases terminated, which means the public's access to services and benefits in their communities is at risk if those offices close. As with other federal agencies, Social Security workers feel tremendous anxiety, frustration, anger, and confusion over whether they're going to have a job in the near future, with the ever-present risk of layoffs hanging over our heads. Many wonder if they should retire or quit. And just today, for absolutely no business reason at all, the agency announced that they were returning all of the majority of our bargaining unit back to the offices full time, despite knowing the historic attrition that action will cause, very well leading potentially to the closure of yet more field offices. The overall situation has depressed morale and is weighing down productivity, hurting public service. Social Security is already in the midst of a customer service crisis caused by more than 15 years of chronic underfunding and a 50-year staffing low. Today, Social Security serves 12 million more people than it did in 2010, with 10,000 fewer workers. We literally cannot afford to lose anyone. With every IT specialist we lose, it puts our ancient and fragile mainframe system containing all of your information at risk, not just of outages, but even total failure. With every frontline worker lost, wait times, processing times, and service delays grow, putting the services Americans paid for with their FICA contributions at risk of collapse. All of these conditions are feeding a perfect storm that will undermine public confidence in Social Security's promise to deliver a guaranteed monthly benefit and access to those benefits. Adding insult to injury, Elon Musk and others have continued to spread and repeat lies about Social Security being a Ponzi scheme, riddled with extreme fraud that only they can find. This misinformation is intended to weaken the public's faith in our programs and open the door to destroying the Social Security system as we know it. And if anyone has seen the markets this week, then you know why protecting Social Security is so important to the income security of millions of Americans. We simply can't gamble the promise on the stock market, and we can't gamble our ability to serve the public with arbitrary layoffs and other draconian measures that will deplete an already understaffed and demoralized agency. Social Security workers deserve better, as do all of you on this call deserve better. That's why I'm excited and I'm proud to stand alongside all of you as we fight to defend Social Security, our other programs, and fight to defend the entire civil service. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Our next speaker may not need much of an introduction because he made a name not just for himself, but for all the hardworking auto workers in the country who were strong enough, organized enough, and proud enough to stand up against some of the biggest corporations in the country. And Shawn Fain is not only an auto workers leader, but also a leader of federal workers, one of the newest and biggest new organizing drives that's succeeded in recent years is that of the NIH Fellows. UAW 2750 is UAW's first federal sector union, but it also makes UAW the newest member of the federal family. And, Shawn Fain has been a personal inspiration for me, somebody who's helped show that, they may have the money, but we have the people, and in the people is the power. For they may be billionaires, but worldwide workers, we are billions, and it's our people power that is the only thing that can overcome their money. So Shawn Fain, it's a real honor to introduce you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
All right. Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for having me. Look, billionaires, it's the richest person in the world, Elon Musk. I mean, we all know what this is. They're trying to steal our federal government, gutting public services, firing civil servants, handing power to billionaires like Musk. It's illegal, it's dangerous, and it's an assault on the working class. And, we've got to be prepared to fight back. And, you bring up the National Institute of Health, 5,000 members we have there, and just negotiated their first contract, right previous to the 30-day cutoff that supposedly is in place when this administration took over. But, Trump and Elon Musk are trying to radically undermine medical research and higher education by using federal funding as leverage to force universities and employers to cower to them. And, we have over 5,000 NIH members that have been directly impacted. Our higher ed people are being directly impacted. They've cut billions in research funding to universities by adding a 15% cap on NIH indirect cost recoveries rate. So, they've frozen or canceled federal funding for life-saving scientific research and education. They canceled $250 million in NIH grants and contracts at Columbia University due to the claims the university failed to suppress illegal protest, and threatened to cancel grants at other universities where UAW members work. And, so our members, obviously we're pushing solidarity across our union, across all unions. We've had auto workers in Pennsylvania, Kentucky, and Illinois making calls around the clock to their representatives, telling them to stop the cuts to NIH and to life-saving research and to quit hurting families. And to go a step further, just today, in the latest assault on First Amendment rights, Columbia University has expelled, which means fired, Grant Minor, the president of UAW Local 2710, which represents thousands of Columbia student workers. And this firing comes one day before contract negotiations are set to open with the university. So it's no accident this comes days after the federal government froze Columbia's free funding and threatened to pull funding from 60 other universities across the country. It's no accident this firing has occurred the day before contract negotiations begin. And it's no accident that the university is targeting a union leader whose local went on strike in the last round of bargaining. And so, this is an assault on our First Amendment rights. It's being jointly committed by the federal government and Columbia University, and they're on attack on all workers. And that's what this is. They're on attack on workers who dare to protest, to speak out, to exercise their freedom of association under our Constitution. And I think about going back this past summer when Musk and the current president were talking and laughing on social media about firing striking workers. If we don't fight back, this is the start of this, but striking workers are going to be next in line to be fired and to be imprisoned. That they'll make striking illegal. I mean, that's just the next step in the process, in my opinion. So, you talk about Social Security. One of our core issues in the UAW is fighting for retirement security and the right to retire with dignity. Elon Musk and congressional Republicans are doing everything they can to attack retirement security, put our lives at risk. You talk about retirees, disabled veterans, disabled workers, veterans who've relied on programs payments for over 90 years. For millions, those programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid are the difference between stability and poverty. And so, cuts to the Social Security agency, to those jobs, those services, it means payments are going to be missed. Working class people are going to suffer. And so, we can't stand for this. So, and to be clear, they're cutting the floor of what working class people deserve. It's not like people are getting rich off these things. They're cutting the floor, And so, and the shameful thing, Musk talked about it being a Ponzi scheme. Now he's saying Social Security is a gigantic magnet to attract illegal immigrants. And the sad reality is immigrants here illegally don't collect a dime in Social Security, but they pay in almost 26 billion a year, which is subsidizing Social Security. And so, it goes back to this. It's all about corporate greed. It's about the wealthy taking everything. So we know what we have to do. The billionaires and greedy corporations are doing what they've done for decades. They want to pit worker against worker. They want to divide us by race, by gender. They want us to think there's not enough for all of us, while they continue to extract more and more of the power and the money. And when we were on the picket line back in 2023 with the Big Free fight, I talked about the fact that the threat we faced, in this country, it's not a foreign adversary. It's not an immigrant crossing the border trying to find a better life. The threat we face is right here at home. It's homegrown. It's corporate greed that's destroying this country. And it's corporate greed that's wrecked our government and destroyed so many communities. And our path to fighting these things rests in our solidarity. So we all know when workers stand in solidarity with one another, stand up to the billionaires and the bosses, that's how we take our power back. And we have to have the courage to tell these politicians to pick a side. And I have faith we do this, we can move mountains. And that's the goal of what, when we talk about May Day 2028, it's about taking back working class power. And so we look forward to standing together with all of you to take on the billionaires as we move forward. So I appreciate the opportunity to be on here tonight and hearing more of the panelists. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Shawn. I'm going to throw it over to another federal employee, Pat Sire, who is a member of AFGE Local 1923. He's going to talk a bit about his work at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, so I took a job in government because I fundamentally believe in public service, in providing critical services that people need and deserve as effectively and efficiently as possible. I work on the things DOGE pretends to care about, modernizing critical IT systems so that they don't crash when you need them, fighting real fraud, not this invented stuff, so that your tax dollars go to medical care, not scammers, improving our cybersecurity so that your medical information doesn't get hacked. CMS provides funding for hospitals, nurses, doctors, so that they can focus on providing care. Medicare and Medicaid are the bedrock of the American healthcare system. And not just for medical care, but for jobs across the entire country. DOGE doesn't care about any of that. They don't want to improve Medicare. They don't want Medicare to exist. They want to gut Medicare, scrap it for parts, sell it to their rich friends, and then they want to turn around and charge you more for worse healthcare. At CMS, we were understaffed before any of this started. And now we're losing staff with decades of expertise that we can't replace. And at the same time, we're losing probationary employees, people new to federal service, the next generation of civil servants. And that's going to take years to replace. Meanwhile, for those of us that are still here, it's chaos. How are we supposed to plan programs for years out in the future when we don't know if we're going to have jobs tomorrow? Medicare is not Twitter. You can't just turn it off and on again and expect that everything will be fine. What happens when a SpaceX intern writes buggy code and your health information gets hacked? What happens when Elon decides that your surgery, that's waste? What happens when your local hospital closes because DOGE stopped payments to them? We need to fight back now while we still have these programs.
Thank you, Pat. That I really appreciated hearing everything you said. Okay, I want to introduce somebody who I'm so honored to be able to get to do this introduction. President Everett Kelley, president of my union, AFGE. I am so excited and honored for you to be here, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say to our group. Thanks so much, Dr. Kelley. One second, Dr. Kelley, you're muted.
Okay, am I good now?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me now? Okay, good. Well, good evening, Union family. And we are family, right? We're family. And I want to start by thanking the Federal Union Network for organizing this meeting. To all of the other leaders who have joined this call to show solidarity on this panel, to all of the workers, and to each of you for taking time out of your lives to join tonight's critical call. Now, I was just last night on a call with, hundreds of FG members and leaders from across the country. And I can tell you this, our fight has never been more important, and our solidarity and resolve has never been stronger. Now, I'm proud to share with you two major accomplishments from just today. The first is a victory made possible because federal workers stood together, fought together, and refused to back down. Today, in a victory for justice, dignity, and fairness in our workplace, a judge ruled decisively against the unjust firing of probationary federal workers, ordering reinstatement for most of who was wrongly terminated. Both probationary status should never be an excuse for abuse, and we won't let it become one. FG members challenged injustice head on, and today, thousands of workers have their livelihood restored because of their collective action. Our victory sends a clear message. No matter how powerful our opponents may be, when we stand united, when we fight together, we have the power and we win. Second, today, FG and our partners have taken bold action against the union busting happening at TSA. TSA workers protect millions of travelers every day, keeping our skies safe. Yet Elon Musk and Kristi Noem and Donald Trump want to destroy their union and throw their contract in the garbage. But we say no. We will not let that happen. Because let me tell you something, union family. If they can rip up a union contract at TSA, it won't be long before they're ripping up your contracts too. And we are not going to let that happen. So our lawsuit isn't just about fighting unlawful action against our members. It's about standing up for the fundamental rights of every American worker to organize, to bargain, and to speak freely. Every American has those rights. And we won't let this administration or any administration trample on those rights without a fight. But let's be clear. These are battles in a large war. Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and their billionaire allies want to dismantle our government, privatize public service, and silence American workers. But we're here tonight to send a loud and a resounding clear message. Our government is not for sale. Public service is not for profit. And the patriotic Americans who make this country work will not be silenced. Together, we're building a powerful movement, one capable of stopping the hostile takeover of our government by unelected billionaires. And we must keep growing this movement. We can't stop here. We can't afford to get satisfied. Tonight must be a beginning of an even greater push to protect our rights, preserve our public service, and strengthen our democracy. So I'm asking each of you tonight, get off this call. Stay engaged. Talk to your friends. Talk to your coworkers, your community leaders, and your elected representatives about what's happening. Keep mobilizing in your communities. Hold rallies and press conferences and marches. Nothing is too big and nothing is too small because it all matters and it all adds up. And spread the word. Talk to your local media. Post on social media. Create videos and infographics. Don't let our opponents dominate the information space. They have been doing this for far too long. They may have the wealth and the platform, but brothers and sisters, we have the people. And there is power in the people. And we're proving that when we move together in this movement, when we fight together, we win together. So let's carry this momentum forward. continue to stand strong and ensure that our voices are heard from coast to coast all over this country. Together, we're going to protect our rights, save our service, safeguard our democracy, and rebuild a government that truly works for all of us, the American people. So keep the pressure on, keep the faith, keep up the fight, because we are family. And families stick together, families fight together, and when families stick together, fight together, family win together. So thank you, family, but let's get this work done. Thank you. Keep the faith.
Thank you so much, President Kelley, for that incredible message. And I loved everything that you said about the ways that people are able to engage and to be able to fight back. Chris, can you talk a little bit about, really briefly, because people want to know, what can they do? What are we asking them to do? So can you tell them a bit about what they can do?
Yeah, just as a reminder, the main call to action tonight is to sign up on savepublicservices.com. And if you're a federal worker, make sure you check that box, and that'll get you routed into the Federal Unionist Network spaces. And we'll also be sharing information with any of the unions that might represent you. If we know where you work and we can get you into your deeper involved into your union, we're obviously here working with all the unions. We need all the unions to be stronger. If you're not a member of your union for any reason, join today. Everybody needs to be paying dues. You need to be recruiting your coworkers. If you're a federal worker and you don't yet have a union, it's a big part of what we do in the fund is that we build new unions. We've got a dozen or more campaigns live right now. We're going on the offensive just while at the same time as we're defending what we've got. And EWOC, the Emergency Workplace Organizing Council, is working closely with the Federal Unionist Network. They're an organization that specializes in organizing new unions, and they've got a growing federal sector area of work. And their website, I'll plug real quick, is workerorganizing.com or .org, sorry, workerorganizing.org. So if you're a federal worker and you want to organize a union, if your SF50 says in field 37, 7777, that means you're eligible for a union. You can organize one now. You can start that process in the fund in the Federal Unionist Network, or you could do it directly with EWOC at workerorganizing.org. But again, the main ask for everybody here tonight is to go to savepublicservices.com and get on that list, because the day that a big firing hits your local federal office, whatever the agency might be, the call's going to go out, and we need you to show up and join the press conference, join the picket line, join the protest, and make sure that we send a clear message to the country that we are not going to tolerate these attacks on our services. So that's the plan. It's to have mass, rapid mobilization responses anytime mass terminations, illegal firings hit a federal workplace near you. So go to savepublicservices.com, join that list. For those of you who are federal workers, check that box. You'll get routed into the work that we're doing and into your union, and that's where the organizing happens. And those are the folks who will be putting out those calls. So savepublicservices.org. And I think, Elisa, you want to introduce Sharia?
Yeah, up next, we have Sharia, another AFGE president, Local 252, over at ED. Sharia, I'll hand it over to you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Alyssa. And thanks, Chris, for being a buffer, because I hate to follow after my national president, Dr. Everett Kelley. He is an amazing speaker. But I do have a timer, so I won't bore you. As Alyssa said, I am the president of AFGE Local 252, which represents every bargaining unit in the U.S. Department, every bargaining unit employee in the U.S. Department of Education nationwide. We are all over. I'm currently with you in Dallas, Texas. I also have just been terminated. As you may be aware of, the U.S. Department of Education has actually been a main target of this administration. You have to ask yourself, why would an administration not want people to be educated? Maybe because they know that when you don't have education, people will believe the lies that they tell about federal workers and about this agency. Now, I am a former teacher in the state of Texas. When I was a teacher in the state of Texas, coming straight from Harvard University, I took my dictates from the state of Texas. I taught a curriculum that the state of Texas told me to teach. I gave tests that the state of Texas told me to give. My kids performed well because I know how to take a test. I did go to Harvard. And I know that the U.S. Department of Education had no impact on what I was doing in the classroom. However, the U.S. Department of Education was critical in getting me in the classroom. I would not have been able to go to college. without the Pell Grants that I received from the U.S. Department of Education or the student loans that I received, I would not have taken a job teaching in a job in public service, like most of us on this call have taken, if I did not have public service loan forgiveness, which is administered by the U.S. Department of Education. As a lawyer in the U.S. Department of Education, I make sure that the rights of students are enforced. So when the detractors of our agency try to pin on us the fact, of the timer, I'm sorry, well, I'm over time, try to pin the low test scores or woke curriculum on the U.S. Department of Education and saying it should go back to the states, they are lying to everyone. They are telling you this is not a solution to those problems. They are saying the very entities that are still in control of those problems and have always been in control of those issues should move forward now unchecked by the U.S. Department of Education, and students should now no longer have access to high quality teachers because public servants do not have student loan forgiveness, which is administered by our education, and people who want to support their higher education and become teachers will not have the help and the aid that the U.S. Department of Education provides through federal student loans. And so this is important to correct miseducation, but as President Kelley said, this is not just an attack on federal workers. This is an attack on everyone. The federal government is supposed to be a model employer, and who would want to work for any employer that is following this model? A model where you kick people out in the middle of the night, you don't even give them termination letters, where you're firing employees, saying that it's best based on their performance, but their performance evaluations have been exceeding expectations for years, where you're firing people because they are allegedly probationary and they've been at this agency for 4 and 5 years. What we have is rampant incompetence from our model employer, and every working American should be afraid of any company following this model. And so I'm glad to be with Fun today. I'm over time, but thank you all. And as everyone said, please get involved, but also please contact your elected representatives and let them know that you expect them to do their job as you have been doing yours. And if this administration can fire us for doing our jobs, what will the American people do to these lawmakers if they refuse to do their job and check this administration? So thank you so much.
Thanks, Sharia. So our next speaker is Terry Scott, the National Executive Vice President of the National Treasury Employees Union. And very briefly, I just want to say that a big part of what we do in the Federal Unionist Network is share resources, strategies, experience. And when I first became a union activist in my local, I remember one of the first things I came upon was the Tell Your Stories campaign that NTEU led in 2018 in the lead up to that shutdown, wound up being the longest shutdown in history. And that campaign, I think, has planted a ton of seeds in what we're doing now. And it's all about telling our stories. So thank you for your leadership. Terry Scott, really, really proud to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. I'm glad to be here. We're actually starting that campaign back up. So I won't get into the union, but I will advise you, go to our website, www.nteu.org. There's an NTU action tab to the right. We have created letters to write your congressman. And we went in and made some changes, and anybody, you don't have to be a federal employee. You can go in there. We have already pre-printed letters. We're asking everyone to write their congressperson. You can create your own letter. When you put in your information, it will actually forward that letter to your representative. It'll ask you for your address and everything. You don't have to save it, but that is the kind of stuff that we're doing now. We're writing our congresspeople. We're coming together. It is important that we do tell our story. Every person who uses social media, we're asking that you use that to tell the story about what is taking place. Unity works. I've been a part of it. I did 44 years with the IRS. Unity works. We have to stick together. And as long as we can remember and remind ourselves as often as necessary that the real enemy is on the other side. There should be nothing that is taking place within this group of people who are coming together that should allow us to be distracted from our real mission, and that is dealing with this administration. I do believe that there's power in numbers, but we have to be aggressive, just as aggressive as they are. We have to be just that aggressive with telling our stories, holding our elected officials accountable, and doing whatever it is that we need to do to bring light into this situation. In Georgia, I'm from Georgia, the tide is turning. A lot of red states who are being impacted by this administration are speaking out. We're fanning that flame, encouraging them to speak out. When you hear a supporter who has a change of heart, don't tell them I told you so. Don't dog them out. Just tell them, look, I realize you made a mistake. It's all right. Join the fight and let's make this happen. We need everybody that we can get on our side. And I believe that if we continue just to work together, put down, titles mean nothing at this point, because if this administration has its way, the titles that we have, we won't have anymore. So we have to be in agreement to just put everything aside that gets in the way of us working together as a one solid unit, no matter where we're from, to take action against this administration. We represent over 150,000 federal employees, but this is not just about federal employees. When we tell our stories, what each organization should be attempting to do is to let people know just how what is taking place with the federal employees impacts them. People don't know, a person who gets the check, they just get the check. They don't know what's in between and what that process involves. So we have to be accurate in letting the person on the corner, the company on the corner, letting them know how they're being impacted through your organization. So we're having our staff go through, we represent 37 different federal agencies, and we're connecting with those agencies, and we're asking people to tell these stories about what you do and how it impacts the consumer. I think someone said earlier, people might not necessarily care about us as a whole, but when we start to talk about what we do and how it impacts them, that gets their attention. And that's part of the Telling Our Story campaign, and we're encouraging everybody to do that. Our website, again, you can go in and you can, wherever you live, whatever state you live in, you can go in and craft a letter or send one of the letters that's in there to your congressperson. And that's what we're asking everybody to do. So I'm excited about this. I love working with people. I love a good fight. I'm not afraid. And I think that's what we need right now. And leaders, stay encouraged. If the people who follow you see you sweating, they're going to start sweating. So we have to always show up front that we were elected or we were chosen to lead, and that's what we have to do. Take your moment, go in your closet, have your cry, whatever it is you need to do. But when you stand before the people you represent, they have to see in you the fight that you are willing to bring, so that way you keep them encouraged to follow you. So I thank you.
Thank you so much for those inspiring words. It's so true. And sometimes you aren't necessarily chosen. You're just the person who looks around and you're not seeing anyone else coming, and it's you. And so you step up and you do it. And I think a lot of people on the call tonight probably can relate to that feeling. Up next, we have Kat Farman, president of NTU Chapter 335 over at Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Kat and the group over there have been putting on some really great rallies, and it's been really inspiring to see and hear what they have all done. So I'll hand it over to you, Kat. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Kat Farman. I am chapter president of CFPB Union NTU 335, representing over 1,100 workers nationwide at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Our union is fighting every day on the job and on the picket line, in the streets and in the courts, to beat back these attacks from unelected billionaire Elon Musk and his creepy cronies like Russell Vogt. Russell Vogt, author of Project 2025, and currently my boss, has locked us out of our workplaces at CFPB across the country. Vogt has grounded our supervision and compliance examiners who go into the big banks and do oversight to make sure they're following the law and not scamming you and gambling away your hard-earned paycheck. And 4 weeks ago, Vote and Doge illegally fired over 200 CFPB workers. Our union is suing Vote for illegally stopping CFPB workers from doing our jobs so we can get back to work protecting Americans from corporate greed. CFPB workers are working people who serve other working people like us. When a big bank rips you off, it's CFPB workers who make them pay. When Wells Fargo stole your money, we made them pay you back. When greedy health insurance CEOs ruined your credit score with medical debt, we canceled $50 billion in medical debt on credit reports for Americans. We protect your paycheck and the mortgage on your house. But right now, without us working, the biggest banks are operating lawlessly with zero oversight, thanks to Elon Musk and Russell Vote. Musk and Vote believe that it's CEOs who should run this country and not the American people. Well, we disagree. CFPB workers work for the people, not the banks or CEOs, and not for billionaires like Elon Musk. What Elon Musk and Russ Vote are trying to do is unconstitutional. It's un-American. It's unpopular. And it's an attack on working people. And we are fighting every day to stop them. So join us.
Thank you, Kat. Our next speaker is Dr. Allison Lao, who is illegally fired from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Food and Nutrition Services. So honored to have you with us, Dr. Lao.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I am a member of NTEU Chapter 226, which represents workers at USDA's Food and Nutrition Service. I am a probationary employee who was illegally fired in February. As of yesterday, USDA did reinstate us. They have said they're going to phase in when we are back at work. But to be very clear, being reinstated right now does not mean we're back at work yet. So it's not enough. We want to be back at work. I love the job that I do. So I worked at the Food and Nutrition Service. It's the agency responsible for the federal nutrition programs like SNAP, WIC, and school meals. These programs serve 1 in 4 Americans every year. I was part of the research team. I have a PhD in nutrition, and I focused on the child nutrition programs like school breakfast and lunch. And I loved my job because our team's research is directly used to improve programs that deliver healthy food to millions of children. And I was good at my job, and all of the dedicated and talented people who I worked with are also damn good at their jobs. And the key takeaway that I want to leave here is that research plays a really critical role in making sure we are delivering the best programs and services to the American people. Researchers at the Food and Nutrition Service study the programs to understand who they reach, how much they cost, their impact on hunger and health, their impact on the broader community. There are positive economic impacts when we hire cafeteria workers at schools or when we support our local farmers and our local grocery stores. And if Congress wants to change a program, we study the pros and cons and trade-offs of their plan. This is essential work. And if we do not have good quality data and research, we can't improve government programs. That applies to healthy school meals. It also applies to housing. It also applies to healthcare services for our veterans. And we can't get good quality data and research if the government doesn't fund the research and doesn't have the people to do the research. And I want to add, I'm speaking to you all from a research conference that I'm at right now. These funding cuts don't just impact federal workers, they impact the workers who at universities and other institutions that are doing good, sound science that helps make government programs better. So we need research to be able to improve government programs. Without it, programs will waste money, programs will have worse outcomes. We are the experts in how these programs work and allies to make these programs better to better serve all Americans. Thank you. Thank you for having us. And that's all that I have.
Thank you so much. All right, up next, sorry, I'm trying to keep us moving quickly to make sure that we get to everybody who is here to speak. So we have such an amazing group of people. We have Maurice Mitchell, who is National Director of the Working Families Party. Maurice is a lifelong organizer, so I'm excited to hear from him. And the Working Families Party has had some amazing successes recently, really giving us kind of like a blueprint for how to do things going forward. So Maurice, please go ahead. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Alyssa, and good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Maurice Mitchell. I'm the National Director of the Working Families Party. It is such a pleasure to be in community with everybody here. I want to thank the AFL-CIO, the AFGE, and FUN, the Federal Unionist Network, for inviting me to participate. Thank you so very much. And I'll cut straight to the chase, right? Things are critical right now, but I want you to know, it may not feel like it, but we are seeing the beginning of the end of the MAGA movement. They won the election, but they did not win a mandate for a wholesale slash and burn of the government, of working people, and of our public services. And they're trying to convince America that what they're doing is about waste, that it's about efficiency. And we know that's a lie. We see right through it. And people rely on the services public workers provide. They rely on the national parks. They rely on consumer protections. They rely on scientific research. They rely on staff social security offices. And in fact, people love these things. They're part of what makes America America. And they're doing it all to give more money and more power to the richest people who ever lived. Now, we're starting to see the backlash to this on a daily basis. We're starting to see people speak out. We're starting to see people organize. Even some people who voted for Trump are having buyer's remorse. Every mass firing leads to real consequences, to say nothing of government workers who now can put food on the tables. Cuts to the VA mean longer wait lines. Cuts to Social Security means delays in benefits. Cuts to Medicaid mean hospitals closing. So we all have to stand together to get through this moment. This is an opportunity for us to build solidarity. Rural America and urban America. This isn't about left versus right. This is top versus bottom. The ultra-rich versus the rest of us. This administration has chosen its side, and we must choose ours. The Working Families Party is the party for the working class, founded with the simple idea that working people should govern, that we have the wisdom and the experience to call the shots, that instead of government of, by, and for the billionaires, we should have government of, by, and for everyday working people. Trump, Musk, Doge, they've declared everyone on this call the enemy. The Democrats, well, sometimes they're trying to figure out how to show up for the fight. I want to pledge to you that we're ready to stand up on your side and fight every single day. I leave you all with two directives. First, take the pledge to defend federal workers and crucial public services at www.savepublicservices.com. And second, join an organization, a union if you can, but any group of like-minded people taking action together will do. And if you're already in an organization, organize your friends into an organization. And as a bonus, if you've ever thought about running for office, there's no better time than today. If you've ever thought about running for office, I want to invite you to learn how, or even to support others. You might be the next working families champion to run on the local level. You could text RUN, R-U-N, to 30403. If we can stay united and expand this coalition, we will defeat MAGA, and we can defend our public services, and we will make government work for working people. And that is how we all of us, all working people, get free. Thank you.
Thanks, Maurice. Our next speaker is an Air Force veteran who was fired not once, but twice by the Small Business Administration. Chris Wicker, please tell your story.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity. As was just said, up until 4 weeks ago, I worked for the U.S. Small Business Administration, where I was the deputy director of the Minnesota District Office. And as a military veteran getting to serve a second time, this was my dream job. I had been an intelligence analyst when I was in uniform, and this was a really great opportunity to help people again. I could not have been more excited. The people that I worked with were absolutely amazing. And then I was fired not once, but twice, and both times by robots, because it's just an automated message coming from, some automated inbox basically telling me to see an attachment. And it was a gut-wrenching experience, not just for me, but for my family. I'm also the proud father of an active duty Army soldier who's stationed out in Colorado right now. And I had to make some really, really quick decisions, as I had to say goodbye to my coworkers and to the amazing small businesses here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where we're taking care of your every business, whether they're somebody who needs access to money to start a business, whether they need a loan to grow their business, a mentor to get them through tough times. If you're a farmer who's trying to get into farming or expand into a family plot of land, every form of entrepreneurship comes through the U.S. Small Business Administration, and it was the opportunity of a lifetime. And so I was left with first 2 weeks notice, then that was rescinded, and then I was fired a second time with no notice, being told I was immediately terminated, immediately hand in all of my equipment, and I didn't even have an opportunity to cancel my meetings, and I was done. And so as I sat home, I took my day of not quite weeping, but we'll call it moping, and maybe just a little bit of Irish whiskey to get through the initial mourning period. I decided I had to do something. I'm in a situation where I've got now just a little bit of time on my hands, and I have a lot of colleagues that were terminated that don't have time on their hands. They've got families to feed. And so I came up with the mantra. I'm going with Jim Carrey's old movie, Yes Man. And I said yes. I said yes every single time. When the local business journal called for an interview, I said yes. When the local CBS station called for an on-camera interview, I said yes. And when my Congresswoman Ilhan Omar called and asked if I wanted to go to the presidential address to a joint session of Congress, I absolutely said yes, where I had the absolute pleasure and honor of sitting next to Dr. Kelley, who sits here in this meeting today. And I was able to listen to a historic event take place in the halls of Congress and sitting in the same room as my own congressperson. And in the follow-up to that, when the Minnesota Attorney General asked if I was interested in helping them sue the administration, I said yes. And when a law firm called me and asked if I was interested in filing an appeal to the Merit Systems Protection Board, I said yes. So when we sit here and we ask ourselves, what can we do? The answer is just say yes. Just say yes. There's a lot of people in this room asking you to do things. Just say yes. If you are currently a unionist, you've got an opportunity to get involved. If you're now a person like me who's just sitting in the community without a whole lot to do other than look for jobs, then definitely say yes when your community asks you to step up. A representative of the Democratic Party here in Minnesota asked if I wanted a meeting on what it took to run a campaign. I absolutely said yes. So every opportunity that we have to take back the services that we need, the services that we've already paid for as taxpayers, the opportunity is now to say yes and get involved and stop being a part of the problem as we sit on the sidelines and to start being a part of the solution, because tomorrow is coming and we need to be at the front of that line. So thank you again to everybody for the opportunity to sit here and speak. I'm grateful for all of your hard work and service, and I hope to see you again in government soon. Thank you.
Oh my God, Chris, I want to vote for you already. You are inspiring. I can't agree more with the message. There are a lot of asks, and we all have to say yes and go into struggle, join together and fight this. We can win. The next speaker is the president of my union. I just want to quickly plug, I know we're a little behind in the schedule, but I need to say that One of the things that's most inspiring about being a member of IFPTE is the absolute guarantee that the union has your back no matter what you face. And one of the only unions that got decertified under the first Trump administration was the National Association of Immigration Judges, which is a sibling local in IFPTE. And of course, the Trump administration back then was trying to speed up deportations, and they saw taking away the collective bargaining rights of immigration judges as a way to do it. And their attack on unions is part of their attack on the broader the broader public. That's the message tonight. And Matt Biggs, the leadership of IFPTE, has been relentless, and to this day continues to fight for and represent, even if the CBA, the collective bargaining rights, have been denied. Matt, it's been so. I take such pride in knowing that I'm in a union that will not give up just because we've maybe suffered some short-term setbacks. And what you've done for the NIAJ is a great inspiration. That fight goes on, as does the rest of it. So thank you, Matt, for your leadership. Love to hear from you.
Hey, Chris, thanks a lot for the kind words, man. I really appreciate it. And thanks for your work and your organizing. And I'll just say, all the workers that are on here tonight, you guys are the ones on the front lines, okay? And that's not lost on me, and that's not lost on IFPTE. You're the ones putting your necks out there tonight, and you have been since this administration took office and started attacking you. So, I'm an elected person in the IFPTE. I'm really honored to be in this position. But it's you guys that are on the front lines, and our union realizes that, and we are here to walk with you arm in arm on that march to get through this administration and get through the other side stronger. And we will do that. We will do that. So thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for all the jobs you're doing. Thank you for serving the public. And thank you for fighting, because this is the fight of our lifetime. That's what we're facing right now. We are literally facing a coup. This president and the unelected co-president Musk are taking a wrecking ball to our government institutions, as you guys know well, and are experiencing it. And it's labor. We're the ones that are standing between saving this nation or not. Brother Everett Kelley mentioned the court case today. That was a huge win, and much thanks to AFGE for your leadership on that. That's going to put a lot of people back to work. But this is a fight that we're going to have to continue for the next 4 years. Hopefully in 2 years, elections may give us a reprieve where we can start gaining some, going. Well, we're on the offensive now. I will just say you guys are out on the streets. But if 2 years from now, hopefully things will go well and we can change things. But right now, what you guys are doing is the answer. You're organizing. You're doing this grassroots. Chris, you put up the map earlier and you showed where the various events are going to be around the country. You're right. That map needs to be full of pins. And we need to go be out in every community in this country and informing the public what federal employees do, the services that federal employees provide. And that's what you guys are doing. So we really appreciate that at IFPTE. I'll just say this. I had some prepared remarks, but I'll just say this. I was on the DC Metro today. I was going to an AFL-CIO meeting, and I got on this train, and I saw this family there. It was a big family. There were about probably 3 sons, 2 daughters, a mother, a father. They had the hats on, the MAGA hats, Make America Great Again, and I'm just sitting there next to them. Actually, I was standing next to them. And it was kind of a long ride. So I just asked him the question. I says, look, where are you guys from and why do you support Donald Trump? I just asked them. And it was a nice conversation we had. And their answer was, well, because he's going to take the waste out of government and he's going to lower prices and one thing after another. And I just started having a conversation with these are just people that are traveling tourists in DC. And I says, look, do you understand this train we're on? It's government employees that make sure this train is safe and it's not going to crash. Do you understand that coffee you're drinking, that coffee is safe for you to drink? It's not, there's no poison in it or it's not contaminated in any way. Do you see that airport over there? we were on the train going by the airport. So you see that airport over there? Those are air traffic controllers that make sure these planes aren't flying into each other when they land. And it was a good conversation, and they listened, and we had a back and forth. And to me, that's what it's going to take. We need to sit down with we shouldn't be angry at people for voting for Trump. What we should be is we should be explaining to them why what this Trump administration is doing to this country is bad for this nation and is putting our democracy in danger. But I'll leave it there. Chris, thanks a lot. I do just want to say one other thing. Go to savepublicservices.com, sign up, and thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it, Chris. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, savepublicservices.com, bookmark it, share it in your school chats, everywhere you are with your coworkers. We need to have hundreds of thousands of people ready to rapid respond when there's any terminations. They're all going to be illegal. We know this administration has no respect for the law. And we need to mobilize dozens, hundreds, thousands of people outside of whatever federal building is the site of the next termination. So that's the plan tonight. SavePublicServices.com. Build it as much as you can. And if you're a federal worker, check that box. You'll get plugged into the Federal Unionist Network, and you can help actually put out the calls when they hit your agencies. Elisa, you want to introduce Jose?
Yes. Up next, thanks so much. We have Jose Vasquez. He's the Executive Director of Common Defense, which is a grassroots veterans organization. Jose served in the U.S. Army and is a fearless leader who I hear just got home from the hospital, but he apparently won't let anything stop him from being here and fighting for veterans. Thank you so much, Jose. We're glad you're doing well, and we're really grateful that you're here with us.
Thank you so much, Elisa, and really honored to be here with so many amazing leaders. I was, sharing a chat with Shawn Fain, just telling him how much I appreciate his work and really impressed with all the folks that are here tonight, sending some love to my brother, Maurice Mitchell, as well. We go way back here in New York City. But thank you, and thanks for having Common Defense here on this call tonight. As Elisa said, I'm Jose Vasquez, Executive Director at Common Defense. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I'm a father of two, and I literally just got discharged from the VA hospital yesterday because I had pancreatic cancer. I do not have a history of cancer in my family, and so we're looking into what military bases was I stationed at that could have increased my chances for contracting this horrible and deadly disease. I'm very, very lucky when they were able to discover it. It was operable. The VA was amazing. I started having some very weird symptoms on February 10th, and by March 5th, I was on the operating table. Just got discharged yesterday from the hospital, and I'm on the road to recovery. I'm laying here in bed. I've got staples in my stomach, but I thought this call was too important to miss because, as you all know, President Trump and Elon Musk and his Doge office are trying to, there was a leaked memo that said they wanted to fire 83,000 personnel from the VA hospital. That's just fucking ludicrous to me. I'm sorry for the language, but I cannot believe that is the case. All of the hardworking nurses, all of the physicians, all of the service workers that are connected to do the ancillary care at the VA are working tirelessly to ensure that our veterans get the care not only that they deserve, but that they have freaking earned by putting their lives on the line for this country. I come from a proud Union family. My father, also a vet, he was a Vietnam veteran, did 2 tours with the 101st Airborne, spent 25 years with the Transit Workers Union, Local 100. And if it wasn't for his VA benefits and the fact that he had a union contract that gave him health care throughout the rest of his life, he would not have lived as long as he did. He was exposed to Agent Orange. He had numerous healthcare issues. And because of the VA and because of his union, he had access to healthcare for the entirety of his life until he passed away in 2020 during the pandemic. So this is just too important. And this deeply impacts the veterans community. We know that 30% of all federal workers are veterans. And those people are working not only at the VA, but throughout the federal government, as we heard earlier from Chris Wicker and many others who are connected to the veterans community. And so I want to talk about the number crunching that Doge is doing. That's what they claim to be doing, that they're seeking out fraud, waste, and abuse. Well, let's talk about some other numbers. 30% federal workers are vets. According to NNU, the National Nurses Union, 92% of all VA facilities report severe nursing shortages. And I can tell you firsthand, having been at the Manhattan VA, listening to the nurses being very concerned about patient ratios and just being completely spread thin. The nurses that took care of me were from the Dominican Republic, the nation of Guinea in Africa, from the Philippines, and many other places from around the world and throughout this country. They are hardworking individuals. I'll tell you about one of them. One of the nurses that took care of me, and I really struck up a really beautiful conversation with her and just a relationship in the short time, the week that I was in the hospital. She had to do a double shift. She was only scheduled to work 8 hours from 12 to 8. They asked her to stay until 8 the next morning. And then she had to go home, take the train home back to Queens, take a shower, and then go to her college class so that she can continue to pursue her RN. That's the kind of people that work at the VA. That's the kind of dedication that we're talking about when we are talking about firing people from the Veterans Administration and many other federal agencies across the country. So what Common Defense is doing right now is we are collecting the stories of any veteran who has been fired from a federal agency, not only the VA, but any federal agency. We're launching a campaign called VA Not for Sale. And we want any veteran who is interested in joining our movement and joining this fight to go to commondefense.us/join. Again, that's commondefense.us/join. There are veterans who are organizing, mobilizing across the country. We have boots on the ground organizers with Common Defense. We are hiring organizers in multiple states as we speak, and our movement is going to continue to grow. So we will be standing in solidarity with all of our union brothers and sisters. Wherever there's a protest, Common Defense members will be there. Wherever there is a legal case, Common Defense members will be there. We are part of this fight, and we are taking it back to these sons of bitches who are trying to cut our federal workers as well as the VA budget and all of the personnel that work there. So thank you for the opportunity to address y'all.
Thanks, Jose. One of the questions that we get all the time in the Federal Unionist Network is from people who are new to their union, or maybe they've been in the union for a long time, but they're new to getting involved. And one of the first things I always try to talk through with people is the importance of identifying the leaders in your workplace. Because the thing we need to do right now more than anything is to find the fighters and bring them into the fight. We all know who the fighters are. They're the people we don't want to fight, right? They're the coworker who is so strong and so well respected that you'd rather side with them than wind up on the other side of anything with them. Find that person, bring them into the union if they're not already. So many others will follow them, and they are the folks that we need to make the difference and tip the balance and make this movement powerful enough to actually win the narrative. That's what it's going to take. So if you're wondering about what it means to get involved in your union, ultimately that's it. It's talking to your coworkers and bringing people into the fight. And one of the first unions that I ever reached out to when we first started building the network was NEFI Local 1, which represents the folks at the San Francisco Veterans Administration Hospital. And I'm so honored to be joined tonight by the president, the national president of the National Federation of Federal Employees. Leads, I don't know how many agencies, Randy, that you represent, but it's
35.
The VA. Go ahead, Randy Erwin. Real honor to have you with us.
Thanks for having me. I want to thank everybody here on the call, one, for all you do every day, but also the kind of we've got momentum now. We really do. I mean, it's amazing how people have stepped up and answered the call. And if we keep on doing that, we have truth on our side. This Doge and Elon Musk, they're a bunch of liars, and that is starting to get through, and it's going to continue to get through. And if we stick with it, don't be demoralized. I know people have been laid off or threatened or anything, but stay strong, stay together. And if we continue to work hard, we will prevail. So I really encourage everybody to do that. I want to kind of fill in some of the gaps of some of the things that I wish were said tonight that weren't. So I'm just going to bounce around a little bit. We got congressional recesses coming up It's very important that we make a splash in the districts this next week, or as soon as we get into recess here. I'm not sure how many are still doing town halls. Obviously, the leader in the House said they're all filled with paid actors, so don't do your town halls. With translation, they're running scared, everybody. They're running scared. Don't let them off the hook. If they do town halls, get in them. Democrats, you want them talking about these issues more and to be properly educated on them. For Republicans, enough of the bullshit about bureaucrats and waste and all this kind of things that are complete nonsense. And look, we cannot let them off the hook. Get to the town halls, get to those district offices, get out in front of their districts, get their attention. Just to contrast, you remember like maybe the Tea Party a couple years or several years ago, they're getting all angry. No, we don't need to be like that. Okay. We shouldn't be like that. We should get their attention and we should set the record straight, but we actually need to make a few friends right now because we're very early in a Congress here. We need to co-opt some people. We don't need it because it's not a 2026 election strategy yet. We'll get to elections in 2026 to change Congress or something like that. But for the meantime, there's a lot of people that can be co-opted just by challenging them on things that are true that we need to educate them about. A big one is veterans. 50,000 veterans have already been laid off or bullied into retirement, into this resignation. They are aiming for 500,000. That is Doge's goal. With all of these cuts, you cannot separate federal workers from veterans. 30% of the federal workforce are veterans. So there's no way to separate veterans from what is happening. And the double whammy for veterans is that they just announced 83,000 cut. They're going to fire 83,000 people at the Department of Veterans Affairs who take care of veterans. And now they're talking about major cuts to Social Security. Who knows? We don't have any details on that, but they're definitely going to be doing it. And they're already kind of like you heard Elon Musk talking about it, on Joe Rogan and stuff like that, calling it a Ponzi scheme and things. That could be like a third punch for veterans because veterans need Social Security. My father's a veteran. So Social Security is his primary income. But we have to challenge people. Okay, you can stand with Elon Musk and Doge and Trump, or you can stand with veterans, but you cannot stand for both. So make a choice. Put it on them. I want to contrast what's happening with a few things I've heard. Sometimes people, when they hear about these cuts, they're like, oh, I've seen this before. They think that it's like privatization that happens when it goes from Democratic administration to Republican administration. Okay. Or it sounds like the things they hear during a lapse in appropriations. There's a government shutdown. Federal workers are hurting. In both those cases, the work isn't going away. So if it gets privatized, the work is still being done. Of course, we don't like that. But, in the end, the work is still being done. But in this case, they're trying to take this work away. They are trying to cut $2 trillion from the budget, which I can't explain how much that is. And they're also trying to do concurrently a $4.5 trillion tax cut that only benefits billionaires. So Elon Musk is out there saying, we absolutely have to do these cuts or we're going to go bankrupt in this country. Then why are you giving away $4.5 trillion to billionaires at the same time? You can't have it both ways. And we have to hammer that point. You cannot have it both ways. The fact that you want a tax cut for billionaires, obviously these big cuts are not necessary right now. And so we got to really hammer that through. We have to tell people that they've been lied to about federal employees. They've been lied to through their teeth. A couple things. They say all these federal employees are in Washington. Only 13% of federal employees are in Washington. They say none of these federal workers want to come to work. They just refuse to come to work. That's total BS. 53% of federal employees are not eligible for telework. 53, a majority. So every minute of every workday is spent in the federal workplace. Overall in the federal government, for everybody who has a federal workplace, 4 out of 5 days are spent in the federal workplace. So you got to challenge them. And a line that I like to use, that I have used, that just works like a charm, is I say, have the courage to reconsider what you think you know about federal employees, because you've been lied to and you really need to know the truth. But have the courage to reconsider what you think you know about federal employees. Last things I'll say is we got it when there's three things that have been irrefutable when we're messaging about this, that are kind of winning the day, and particularly converting Republicans. One, talking about the Constitution. The president in this whole DOGE effort is completely illegal, but when the president does things that are illegal, he is violating his oath of office. He is not upholding the Constitution. And we got to put this in people's faces and say, the real solution: follow the gosh damn Constitution. Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution says the president must faithfully execute the laws of this country. He's not doing that. We got to make him do it. We got to again emphasize the impact. This 1-2 punch just really the impact on veterans is unacceptable. What's happening, and the last thing is that we need these members of Congress to side with their constituents, not the billionaires. And if we're, every district has been negatively impacted already, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And who are you going to stand with? Are you going to stand with your constituents, or are you going to stand with these jerks who are lying to the American people?
Thanks
That's my
so much,
4 minutes.
Randy.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Randy. Yes, you're exactly right. And instead of slashing the government, we're calling for them to let us work. Let us do our jobs. That's what this campaign is,
Absolutely.
So much of this campaign is about. And it's so important for everybody to get involved around the country, for us to have sort of that consistent message across the country, and for us to be united in that message. So again, remember that our campaign, the Let Us Work campaign, it's about everyone around the country coming together. Sign up at savepublicservices.com so that you can get involved. You can set up a rapid response action. You can set up a community town hall to help provide information and help sort of reach another group of people in your region who are being impacted. And there's really a role for everybody. If we, federal workers, but also we have a lot of allies who want to join us in solidarity, and you all can help with those different actions as well. So please make sure you take a look at that and you sign up on our website. Up next, I want to introduce some friends who are joining us in solidarity. The American Federation of Teachers. They represent educators in cities and states all across the country, and these are educators who know very well exactly what the downstream impacts are going to be of the attacks on the federal workforce and, of course, on federal spending. So I'm really excited to be able to have them here with us. Our two vice presidents of the American Federation of Teachers, Todd Wolfson and Jessica Tang. Thanks for being here. Hang on 1 sec, Todd,
you're muted. My bad. My apologies. It's so great to be here, and it's an honor to be with all these amazing leaders. Thanks so much. I'm Todd Wolfson, and I'm president of the American Association of University Professors and the national vice president of the American Federation of Teachers. Jessica?
And hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Tang, and I'm a middle school teacher in Boston Public Schools and president of AFT Massachusetts and AFT vice president as well, and chair of the AFT's New Resistance Committee.
So I'm going to start off, and I think one thing that I really want to put out and frame is that AFT and AAUP, and in this case, higher education workers, millions of higher education workers in this country, stand shoulder to shoulder with federal workers. In fact, in many cases, higher ed workers are federal workers. And I'm talking about faculty, grad workers, professional staff, scientists, groundskeepers, coaches, librarians, counselors, clerical staff, all higher education workers. Your fight is our fight. So one day they slash the NIH or the VA and lay off workers, and the next day they slash funding to Columbia University or the University of Maine and lay off workers. Just today, we learned that Johns Hopkins is laying off 2,000 workers in biomedical research. And also just today, Columbia University, the administration at Columbia University expelled the president of the UAW grad worker local. So if anybody is not clear about the moment, it's clear now. It is time to stand up and fight. And so I've been watching federal workers and how you all have stepped up and fought back against Trump's cuts. And as a union leader in higher ed, I have to say that higher ed workers are inspired by the federal workers. We are energized by the federal workers. And most importantly, we're learning from federal workers and fun about how to challenge the attacks in higher ed. And just like federal workers, higher ed workers refuse to stand by while Trump and his billionaire allies destroy the institutions that keep people alive. And I want to just lay out what the cuts look like, the cuts in higher ed and in the federal government around biomedical research in particular. Those cuts mean cancer patients left without hope. They mean Alzheimer's stealing more loved ones, diabetes going untreated, and heart disease taking lives that could have been saved. It means doctors and scientists forced to abandon research that could cure the next deadly disease. It means students training to save lives that will have their careers ripped away from them before they even begin. And it means thousands of workers, researchers in labs, nurses at the bedside, educators in the classroom, the custodians who keep our hospitals running, thrown into uncertainty, struggling to make ends meet, all because billionaires decided their profits matter more than our lives. I mean, I think it's too serious right now to mince words. The truth is that Trump's cuts kill. They kill people, they kill jobs, they kill research, they kill healthcare, they kill education, and they kill our communities. And let's get it straight. That's exactly what these cuts are meant to do. But FUN and other federal workers are showing us a path to fight back. We need to come together. We need to build our power, and we need to coordinate across sectors and across unions, and we need to escalate our fight. And we can't just talk about it, we got to do it. So higher ed workers and AFT stand with federal workers, and we stand with the campaign Let Us Work. We are your partners. We are planning a National Day of Action on April 8th to save higher ed on our campuses and around this country. And we want you to join us, and we're going to join you. And so I'm going to pass it to Jessica.
Thank you, Todd. So pre-K through 12 educators are also here in solidarity, and the NEA and AFT educators actually this evening were also on a national call to organize and fight back. And as Todd shared, your fight is our fight, and we are all being harmed by the attacks from the same bad actors who are eviscerating the public services working people depend on while they do this to justify tax breaks for billionaires and corporations. But they're also doing this to erode and undermine democracy itself. And instead of having a government that is making the lives of everyday working people better, this autocratic regime is taking away critical public goods, including to access to knowledge itself. That is by design. And the fight of federal workers, USAID workers, higher ed, pre-K through 12 education workers is all connected. And as educators, it's easy to see the connections because when half of the workers at the Department of Education are illegally fired, it will absolutely cause harm to our students, particularly the most vulnerable, our low-income families, students with disabilities, our multilingual learners, our students of color. The funding cuts will result in overcrowded classrooms and fewer services. And when our students are afraid to go to school or hospitals and our communities are less safe. And when our students have relatives in other countries harmed by cuts to USAID, it impacts their ability to focus when their families are anxious and worried. And of course, when our students, parents, many of whom are federal workers, are losing their jobs, their academics suffer, and so does their social, emotional, and physical health. So bottom line, if we care about our students' futures, our families, and better lives for all working people, we must come together and fight back. None of this is normal. None of this is okay. And we need to keep organizing and growing the resistance together because when we are together, we are stronger, and then we cannot be ignored. And that is what union solidarity is all about. So I am, again, a history and social studies teacher, and history has taught us that when labor leaders come together and fight back, democracy can rebound, but the percentages are much higher when we are leading, and we've got to meet the moment right now.
Up next, we're joined by Liz Shuler, the president of the AFL-CIO, the largest federation of unions in the country representing more than 15 million working people union members, Liz Schuler.
Hey everybody, this is AFL-CIO President Liz Schuler, and I am so excited to be joining you tonight, bringing the voices of 63 unions and nearly 15 million working people who work every type of job across the economy in every community. And I want to give a big thank you to the entire team at FUN and everyone who helped put this event together. Thank you for reminding us, especially in these tough moments, how much fun it is to stand together, to organize, and to fight alongside each other. And thanks to all the activists and union members who are here tonight and who want to get more involved in the fight. I wish I was able to join you live, but I'm also showing up tonight to support our nurses at National Nurses United as they fight back against these cuts to Medicaid that affect so many people across our communities. So the fact that there are multiple events happening all over the country at the same time shows how fired up working people are in response to the attacks of this administration. All throughout the last election, we kept hearing about how divided people were. Well, what I see every day is the opposite. I see the working class of America united in how frustrated they are with the system we live in, where CEOs make 238 times what we make, where we work too many hours just to live paycheck to paycheck without enough time to spend with our families or afford the things we actually need, where an unelected billionaire is literally wielding a chainsaw and cutting critical government services and firing our veterans without any thought to what it means for people's lives. Working people, Democrats, Republicans, independents are fed up. We want common sense from our government, and every worker in this country should ask themselves, does it make sense to get rid of the people who inspect our food, protect our veterans, run our child care centers, and keep our planes safely in the sky? Does it make sense to give $2 trillion in tax cuts to billionaires at the expense of workers who make less in a year than those greedy people make in a day? Does any of that make sense? And do these things make our futures better? No, and we don't have to accept it. The solution isn't going to come from political parties. It's going to come from us. So if you want to help create a better way forward, this is the moment to get involved. And I know the team at FUN, the federal unions and other unions and speakers tonight are going to talk about the ways you can join the fight. But here's just a couple things that come to mind. Number one, Elon has his Department of Government Efficiency. Well, you can join our department, the Department of People Who Work for a Living. The second thing, show up at a town hall or a rally near you next week during the congressional recess. Our state AFL-CIOs and labor councils at the community level are leading actions throughout the week. So visit AFL-CIO.org to learn more and check out events near you. This is the moment for working people of all backgrounds to come together. We build our power by standing strong together, by having each other's backs, and acting in solidarity as we fight to build a better future for all of us. Thank you.
Our next speaker, greetings from Senator Chris Murphy, who I think has been at the front lines of the Senate in terms of making the case that there actually can be leadership in the halls of Congress willing to stand up to these attacks, and that we don't just have to give up and let them run it the way they want to. So Senator Murphy, thanks for submitting some welcome remarks, Senator Murphy. Oh, it sounds like there's a technical issue. Maybe we don't have Senator Murphy's remarks. I submitted them. We'll try to get those a little bit later. Elisa, do you want to introduce Greg Casar?
Yes, absolutely. I do, before we jump into that, I do just also want to, highlight the amazing federal workers who spoke to us tonight and just sort of reiterate that so much of what this campaign is and what all of our campaigns are about not giving into sort of the fear that they're trying to use to silence us. And I hope that sort of seeing and hearing these amazing federal workers speak up helps sort of energize us and remind us how important it is that sort of nothing important has ever been won without sort of having to stand up, come together and speak out. So I'm so grateful to have heard all of what you all had to say and about the things that you were doing to fight back. So next up, I want to introduce Congressman Greg Casar, representing the 35th District of Texas. Congressman Casar is a former labor organizer, so he really knows this world well, and is also the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Oh, I think we may be having issues with the feed.
Hey y'all, it's Congressman Greg Casar. I represent the heart of Texas. I was a labor organizer before I was an elected official, and now I serve as chairman of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And I want to let you know that me and so many others in elected office are so grateful to you for your public service as federal employees, for your work speaking out on behalf of the American people, and for your work launching the Let Us Work campaign. Federal workers are just out there telling folks, let us work for the American people. Let us work to make sure this government works for everyday people and not just for billionaires. Let us do our jobs, and on top of doing your jobs, you are standing up courageously right now for the fundamentals of American democracy. Look, Elon Musk is out there trying to lie and say that he is doing this work for quote unquote efficiency's sake. But as far as I can tell, all he is trying to do efficiently is to steal taxpayer money and keep it for himself, or to hand it out to his buddies in the form of big corporate tax breaks and billionaire tax breaks. If we expose that truth to the American people will stand with us. The American people will stand with federal workers. The American people will stand for the idea that our taxpayer dollars should go back to serving people. Those dollars should not be going to be stolen by corrupt individuals who are on a power trip. Look, FDR laid this out very clearly back in the 1930s. Those with enormous power and enormous privilege think that they can take over our government and run it for themselves. But the ultimate check and balance in this government isn't necessarily the courts. It isn't even Congress. It is the American people. It is the American worker. And so in my view, the best solution to growing autocracy is more democracy. The best solution to this kind of oligarchy is the power of working class Americans. And so you are exhibiting the best of our democracy right now. Democracy is not just during election season or at the ballot box. It is in organizing your workplace, organizing your coworkers, organizing your community. And the Let Us Work campaign is exactly what defeated the robber barons back in the 1920s and won us the union rights movement and the New Deal that was won in the 1930s. It's exactly what it is that got the segregationists chokehold off of our Congress in the 1960s and won us things like Medicare and Medicaid and the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. And it's exactly what's needed today. Workers organizing and speaking out to make sure that we take back our federal government, win back the services that so many people rely on, win back your jobs, but actually also win back the right to have a government run for everyday people and not just run for people like Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Thanks so much for kicking off this amazing campaign.
Thanks, Representative Casar, for submitting that. And our next is from Robert Reich, who's the former Secretary of Labor, popular commentator and author. Robert Reich is up next. Maybe while we're pulling that video up, I'll just replug safepublicservices.com. That's the main call to action tonight. If you've joined us recently, you haven't heard it yet, it's safepublicservices.com. And the idea is that everybody who hears this tonight shares it with your coworkers and your friends and your neighbors to build the largest possible rapid response to the next time a wave of firings hit a federal office near you. When that happens, we want the same day or the next day, a quick response to show people in the streets this is not acceptable. We're going to defend federal workers and we're going to defend the services that they provide. Is Robert Reich's video ready? Okay.
Hello, my name is Robert Reich. I was Secretary of Labor in the Clinton administration. But the issues we faced then and the issues you face now are very similar in the sense that American workers need to stand together. I want to talk about what it means for workers to stand together. I want to talk about the importance also of public service. In my experience, there's no work that is more noble than working for the American public. The idea that you can take a chainsaw to the government of the United States and simply fire thousands of workers who are putting in their lives, who are very, very often, in fact, most are working at a lower salary than they could work at in the private sector, given their level of education. The notion that the richest person in the world can just go in, hire a little team of high-tech people from Silicon Valley, worm their way into every database and every government agency, and then just decide to slash and burn is absurd. The private sector on its own cannot do most of the things that the public needs to be done. Now, the richest person in the world can do whatever he wants to do, but he is not going to destroy our government. He is not going to undermine the foundations of the common good. He is not going to take his chainsaw, as he has applied to other private sector organizations that he owns. He's not going to simply get rid of large numbers of federal workers in the Veterans Administration, in providing Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security. Getting rid of services that people need doesn't make the public better off. It makes the public worse off. We live in a democracy. Every federal worker has sworn an oath of allegiance to the people of the United States and the Constitution of the United States. The richest man in the world has not made that oath and sworn that oath and given that allegiance. We believe in a system of government that works for everyone. You may not like everything that government does all the time. I certainly don't and didn't. But we believe in our system of government because it is a system by and for and of the people. Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and others who are now taking a wrecking ball to government couldn't care less about our system of government. When the richest person in the world spends more than $250 million getting Donald Trump elected, and then Donald Trump turns around and says to the richest person in the world, "Will you help me destroy the government?" That's called a quid pro quo. Because there is no question that Donald Trump and Elon Musk and America's oligarchy, what they are trying to do is not just destroy the government. They're also trying to make room for one of the biggest tax cuts in history going to the richest people and biggest corporations in America. Finally, I just want to say a few words of thanks to America's workforce, particularly America's public servants, people who have put in the time and the effort and the hours and have the expertise to deliver the services Americans desperately need. Instead of you being the victims of Donald Trump and Musk and this crazy nihilistic urge to just destroy government, you should be honored. America should and does honor you. You are the bedrock of our communities. There is nothing nobler than being a public servant. Thank you.
Many thanks to Robert Reich for that. We have one last video. We found Chris Murphy's. We'll put that up next, and then Paul Osadebe will bring it home with some final remarks. So next, Senator Murphy, who's shown real leadership in the Senate.
Hey, Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut. Sorry, I'm not on the air with you in person, but I wanted to just thank you for a few things. First, I want to thank you for the work that you do. Federal employees protect this country. They serve the most vulnerable. They help us recover from disasters. This country doesn't run. America isn't America without our federal workforce. And so as a citizen of this nation, not as a United States Senator, I want to say thank you for what you do. Second, I want to say thank you for standing up at this moment. You are on the front line of an assault that is, yes, targeted on federal workers, but aimed at all of the rest of us. What Elon Musk and what Donald Trump are doing is pretty simple. They are trying to destroy our economy intentionally, trying to destroy our government by firing federal workers left and right, in order to create a crisis that will allow them to hand our entire government over to their billionaire friends and destroy the rule of law. This is the playbook that would-be autocrats use and have used all over the world. Create crises, create confusion, demonize populations in order to create the pretext to steal resources from ordinary people and to steal our government from us. And how they win is when we stay silent. They win when we stay indoors. They win when we decide that it's just too hard and it's just too confusing and we would just rather not fight. You're fighting. You have friends here in the United States Senate that are fighting on your behalf, that are telling the story about the work that you do, that are helping assist our fight in the courts, in the streets, and here in Washington to help make sure that we get you back on the job, that we respect the rule of law, and we make sure that we save our democracy. So thank you for what you're doing, and I look forward on all the ways that we're going to continue to work together.
Many thanks to everybody who's joined us tonight. I think at some point there were some 65,000 people watching live at one point between the Facebook live stream and on YouTube. And this is obviously just the beginning. We're only 2 months into this administration, but we can actually stop them before they go much further if we continue to build on what we've started here. Paul Osadebe, who we heard from at the top, is going to close us out with a couple remarks. Paul, not only a steward in his AFGE local at Housing and Urban Development, but also a member of the steering committee of the Federal Unionist Network. Paul, why don't you bring it home, and then we'll say goodnight.
I just want to thank the thousands of people that were here tonight, our speakers who showed such an inspiring commitment to public service and to solidarity and to taking the action that's actually necessary to stop this attack on the American people. What we talked about here today was not just a rally. It was not just a group call. It wasn't a venting session. It's the beginning of a movement. That's what this is tonight. So when we leave here today, we're all going to go to take action at savepublicservices.com. We're going to start that movement all across the country, and we're going to fill up that map that we've been talking about. In every small town, every big city, every county, every place in this country where public service is being stolen from the people, which is everywhere, that's where you need to be out in the streets. That means rallies. That means town halls. That means pickets. That means whatever activity that you can think of that will stop the movement of these autocrats, these oligarchs, these billionaires that are attempting to steal your government out from under you. And as people have been saying throughout this call, the only way that they can do that is if you stay silent. They are counting on moving so fast and breaking so many things that we cannot respond. But we always have the power to respond. They cannot stop us from doing that. If you join together and understand what solidarity really means, that means through thick and thin, when it's difficult, when it's hard, when it's potentially dangerous, that is when you join together most closely with the people who are in the same situation as you, which is all working Americans, all people who are not billionaires. We are all in the same bucket right now, under attack from a small group of people. And because they are a small group of people and we are many, and we are the ones who do all the work in this country, that means we have all the power if only we use it. And that's what this call is about. So we've been, just as a country, since January, a lot of people have been demoralized. They've been shocked. They've been scared. And they've been looking for someone or something to come out of nowhere and save them. They've been looking for a savior, whether it's politicians or just somebody. But what I'm here to tell you is that that savior is yourself. You are the person who can save you. You joining with your community, that is the only way forward here. So that's what we're going to do after this call. We are going to start that movement all across the country. Go to savepublicservices.com, sign up for an action in your town, get the resources you need to join this movement. And when we do that, we will build the power to win. And when we win, we're not just talking about defeating the attacks that we're facing. We're showing that working people have the power, and always will have the power, so that this cannot happen again. When we build the durable connections to respond whenever people are attempting to steal and trample on our rights, they will not even try it next time, because we have built the power to scare them out of the thought. And that's when we have real power. That's what we're building tonight. So if you are interested in building that type of power, go to savepublicservices.com. We can do it. Let's get to work tonight. Let's go.